CBS 46 News presents Public Affairs on Peach.
Imagine sitting in prison for years and years doing time for a crime you did not commit. It happens more often than you may think, but there's one group that works diligently to free those who are wrongly convicted. Good Sunday morning to you. I'm Adam Murphy, consumer investigative reporter for CBS 46 News. It's a bitter pill to swallow, spending time behind bars for a crime that you did not commit. We've heard the story before, but what many of us do not know is how someone is proven guilty when they're innocent, and then how do you turn it around? Well, joining me this morning is a very special gentleman, Clarence Harrison, and you spent 17 years behind bars, is that right?
That's correct.
Tell me what happened.
I was falsely accused of a rape, robbery, and a kidnapping in 1987. The crime occurred in 1986, and a woman was attacked at a bus stop. And at the time the crime was committed, I was at a friend's house playing cards. And I was later picked up by the police and taken out to the police station and photographed, and then later picked up and arrested for the crime.
Why you?
It was later, after my release, I later learned, that the officer, was making me out a suspect, that he thought I had a small mouth. I spent years just wondering how I became involved in the crime, but it took years for me to find out later.
When you were arrested and then you were sentenced, what was going through your mind at that point?
Well, when they arrested me, I was more or less wondering, man, why are these folks doing this? I couldn't understand, why I was arrested. But I wasn't afraid because I hadn't did anything. And even when I went to trial, I didn't have any fear because I hadn't committed any crime. And I couldn't believe that, they would find me guilty because I believed in the system, And I knew that the system, that it would protect me. And when they did find me guilty and the judge sentenced me, I still, couldn't accept it or believe it, I'm still looking for that someone for the inconvenient and say, hey, it's a mistake, but it didn't happen,
So, Clarence, what is that like when you're in a situation like this and then you begin to tell everyone, the police, the investigators, the judge, I didn't do it, and no one is believing you, right?
No one believed them. I kept writing different people. I didn't know who I should contact or how to find help. And I wasted, countless hours at night writing letters out, trying to get someone just to hear. And there was no one there, I think it was almost 13 years before someone did hear, and that was the Georgia Innocence Project. They were the first person who accepted my case and said that they would investigate it.
So were you picked out of a lineup?
From a photograph line. The victim positively identified my photograph from a photograph lineup. Okay.
And so when that happened, were you anywhere near the crime? You said you were playing cards.
Yes, I lived it over in the community. I was directly across the street from my home, and the actual crime occurred in the next street over from my home and the place where I was playing cards.
It's just fascinating. So fortunately for the Georgia Innocence Project, they come along and they gave you a shot here, right?
Yes.
Talk about what they were able to do for you.
Well, I wrote the Georgia Innocence Project and was asking them could they investigate my case, that I was actually innocent of the crime, and that could they find the evidence in my case and do the DNA. I was seeking DNA to vindicate myself and prove my innocence. At first I was told that the evidence had been lost and destroyed. There was no evidence in existence. But the Georgia Innocence Project, an intern who was at the project, found the slides from the rape kit in which they sent to California and had to conduct an examination through DNA testing and prove my innocence.
So you were incarcerated in 1987, released in November of 2004. You're now out. This marks 10 years out, free. What was that like, losing so many years of your life, and how have you turned things around now?
It doesn't seem like it's been 10 years still, yesterday to me, but I'm still trying to turn things around. I'm still trying to adapt out here in this, I call it the so-called free world, and adjust. It's not easy adjusting back in society. Once it's a gap in my life that if I'm finding it hard to overcome, because I was taking it at my younger age where I should have been playing in my future, where I should have had something set for this time. But see, I don't, have a future, because your youth is your future, and they stole that from me.
Have they arrested the individual that was responsible for this crime?
No, it was never, no one other than me would ever investigate it. So,
okay.
And they still haven't. Even when they sent the labs, the tests to be conducted on other criminals to find out what they were, they never found anyone.
How grateful are you to the Georgia Innocence Project?
I'm very grateful for the Georgia Innocence Project, and that's why since I've been home, I have dedicated my life in trying to help others who are in the same situation that I was in, and hoping I could free someone myself.
Wow. Very fascinating. Clarence, thank you so much. We're going to chat more with you after this break. And when we do come back, we learn more about the Georgia Innocence Project and how they decide who they will represent. Stay with us. We're coming back on Public Affairs on Peach right after this break.